Welcome to the Recycle Podcast, where we discuss everyday issues from a mental health perspective. We are your hosts, Dr. Rashonda Strickland,
Dr. LaFanya Jones-Hines,
and Dr. Nichelle Wall. Now, don't get it twisted. We're not going to be your stereotypical therapist.
What we will be is informative, down to earth, a little spicy, and vulnerable.
All right, interns, turn up your volume, grab your pen and paper. It's supervision time. As a reminder, this podcast is not meant to take the place of a relationship with a licensed mental health professional.
Welcome back to session 102, the 6 habits that will keep you lonely. Today's mood music is brought to you by the extra flamboyant Bootsy Collins, aka Bootzilla Baby. And the song is I'd Rather Be With You. Yeah. 1976.
If y'all only knew. Yeah, this is like the 5th time we're starting this. It just gets better each time.
Yes. So this is going to be the charm. So today we're going to be talking about loneliness. And we are going to give you 6 habits, but we're going to give you 2 extra ones at the end. So you have to listen all the way through the end.
Mm-hmm.
So loneliness is the distressing feeling that arises when one's desired quantity or quality of social connection has failed to be met.
Mm-hmm.
So my question today is, how did we get to this place where so many people struggle with loneliness?
So I think the easy go-to answer for right now is social media.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of is one of the things that has caused people to view the world in a different kind of way and made us a little bit more separate from one another, even though it posits itself as being connective. That is a feature of the screen, that it's a false sense of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has contributed to people believing that they have more than what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I believe over the years we've continued to diminish our connection to each other, whether that's knowing how to talk to each other, whether that is, even if we are using social media, is it only just to like things versus are you actually interacting with people? Are you having Skype, Zoom, whatever the modality is. And the more we get away from that, the more disconnected we become.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm going to say COVID, because obviously, when we had this pseudo quarantine in Texas, it separated all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it, one of the other things that I think too is that a lot of people started either evaluating or realizing how much they matter or don't matter to certain people.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think mattering to people is something that we have taken for granted, and showing people that we matter or they matter to us, we've taken that for granted as well.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. We don't understand the value of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because one of the pieces of research that I was looking at was talking about some of the genetic components to loneliness and why we feel this feeling to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And it was discussing how we are, of course, social creatures, and we have all of these genes in our system that drive us to want to be connected to other people. And COVID, now this article is not about COVID, but since that was something that you brought up, it makes sense because it kept us away, and because we're social creatures, we don't know how to handle not being around each other for extended amounts of time.
Yeah.
And I think it was much more difficult for millennials and Gen X and boomers, maybe not necessarily so for younger Gen Zs initially. I do think that there have been some significant ill effects for the younger generation.
Mhm.
But in the initial stages, I believe it was much harder on the older individuals because we were not brought up in a system of being
No.
online and
Cell phones and
right.
emails and
We played outside, you know,
Right.
with each
Exactly.
other and things like that. I think a prime example of this, if people are struggling to conceptualize it, is to think of the prison system. And when
Mhm.
the rewards and punishments go, typically your freedom is something that is immediately taken away when you are
Mhm.
sentenced, of course. But then once you are in there, you can be put in a hole, you can be put in isolation, like your time on the yard gets taken away. Like all of these things are manipulations of loneliness and being alone.
Mhm.
So it essentially that's what has happened, but we've done it internally and mentally. Yes, COVID came and impacted us, but I think we were already headed there, and we just were so ill-equipped to handle any of
it
this
was
that's
like the
going
rug
on.
was pulled from under us. Like we didn't have a choice but to
Mhm.
learn how to communicate and socialize differently.
Yeah.
When, like you were saying earlier, the older generations, that's not what we were brought up on. So for us to have to now be forced into only texting or only being able to email or only
Mhm.
doing FaceTime, like, because I cannot stand doing virtual therapy.
Not my
Personally,
preference.
I cannot stand it. I prefer for my clients to come in any day.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
So, as promised,
Mhm.
The first habit that we have is, you always kind of like feel like you're on the go. You're always rushing and feeling like kind of like you're being ran by a motor. It's
Mhm.
almost like anxiety.
They go hand in
Yeah, I was
hand.
going to say a heavy contributor to
Yes.
loneliness is anxiety,
Mhm.
kind of social anxiety.
Mhm.
But absolutely, if you are not able to sit and be in a space and experience it, I think this goes back to our session on your senses
Mhm.
and sensuality. If you're not able to be in a place, in a space, and take in your environment
Yeah.
because your mind is just like, "Brrr," or you're like, well, let me gotta go do this and I gotta do this. It keeps you away from the people and places that center you
Mhm.
and keep you grounded.
Yeah.
Well, and it doesn't allow you to enjoy the moment. I used to envy people who could really just like sit there and enjoy their food, like every bite that they can,
Mhm.
because when you're working on your doctoral degree, like you don't have time. You
Right.
are on the go all the time. But then I graduated and I was able to enjoy life.
Yeah.
And I was able to sit for a minute and just enjoy. I don't care if it was a chip. I was able to enjoy the salt, the flavorings. I was able to sit down.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Another kind of caveat to that is you're most likely filling your time, because if you are lonely, then there's a sense of being alone as well as the loneliness feeling.
Mhm.
And I need to fill that space up with something.
Yeah.
I don't hope this doesn't sound horrible, but a lot of people who wants to go home and I have nothing. I don't have
Nothing.
right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
If I don't have if I don't have friends, if I don't have family, if I don't have a pet, I don't have anything to occupy my time in a meaningful way, then I need to fill that void with activity.
You become a busybody.
Mm-hmm.
You can't settle it. I think probably last year we were talking about Dr. Jones Hines' connection with her husband and how he settled her and made her, be able to be in her body. It's a similar thought process when you think about the busyness, if you are that person with your loneliness. Like you're running around so much to where your body doesn't have, or your soul, spirit, whatever you want to, however you want to look at it, doesn't have an opportunity to connect with those around you that you choose. You're just constantly on the go, and then you look up and you don't know why you're feeling the way you feel, but you can't make a connection if you're not there to foster it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't even make a connection with you. because you're not sitting down long enough to know you, the intricate parts, the internal parts of you, which is why we have so many people thinking that self-esteem is about the external things. And that it's not. That's why self-esteem goes up and down, because we value our self-esteem based on cars, house, family, jobs, career, instead of the internal things that you have going on inside, like you're loving, you're nurturing, you're kind, you're caring, you're genuine.
Yeah.
Those are the things that no one can take from you. But if you don't sit with yourself long enough to know you don't know what you hold on the inside.
Absolutely. I think that's another contributor to loneliness is attaching value to things. I need to, again, this is about filling an empty space that I have. And, this can, for some people, lead to hoarding, on an extreme end, of course, or heavy collecting, because I need a tangible object that I can associate with comfort, with peace, and the visual of not being by myself.
Yeah.
So I may engage in compulsive or excessive, shopping, like I said, hoarding, and it doesn't actually do the thing that you're looking for it to do.
Yeah.
But because I need something, that makes sense for some people.
You could also see that with, the emotional eating. That can also be the thing that you're focusing on. Like you're filling space externally, internally, emotionally, and it's giving you the respite that you really should be putting into yourself, as well as to those that you trust and can connect with.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. It's hard to be able to self-assess that and then make behavioral changes to do something about that.
Because people truly think that this busy schedule that they have is needed and necessary. And I'm not saying certain things are not necessary for that day, but everything doesn't have to be in one day.
True. You only got 24 hours.
And really, you only have 8 to 12 because you got to sleep.
That's true too.
If you sleep right. Yeah. I think that's why 1 and 2 kind of go hand in hand, the busy schedule and the focusing on the material things and just filling up with stuff that at the end of the day really does not matter. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because you can't take it with you.
Yeah.
So to be more specific, the second one is you like to spend them dollars, smile.
Where them dollars at? Where them dollars at? All of our millennials know it.
I know, right? But if you, just to bring up the COVID situation again, I don't know how many people I have heard say they cannot stop buying stuff from Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was bringing people some sort of, comfort.
It's a temporary high.
Yeah.
It's a dopamine response.
It's the endorphins going.
Yeah, there's
you get it at the door.
Yeah, there's a reward aspect that comes with like, I got this thing, bing, and now I feel good. But of course, we all know that can become a vicious cycle where I got this thing, but like, oh man, I spent this money. I didn't really, either I didn't need this thing or it didn't do what I was hoping it would do. And ergo, I go and do said thing all over again.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like mine stayed the same because y'all know I had already been like ordering stuff because of, Dr. Wall wasn't picking up nothing heavy for, a long time. So I was like, please order my groceries and the things that I need for my house. So I was glad I didn't fall into the trap.
Yeah. That makes sense.
The Amazon trap. Not sponsored.
But please do. Another issue I can kind of foresee for people that have lonely habits is being very hard on themselves or hard on others.
Yeah.
That if I have a certain idea about the way you should be behaving, about the a sense of morality and kind of black and white thinking, then because I am placing my opinions and judgment onto you, it makes it difficult to engage in connection.
I can't tell you how many times over the course of the last few years I've had to tell people, that's your stuff. That's not who I want to be. I don't tell you who to be. Let me be who I'm gonna be, and we can still be loving towards each other. Like it really bothers me when people only believe that there's one way to be, and that's whether they're talking to themselves or if they're talking to other people. And I think that's an issue that collectively we all struggle with, and you kind of have to like pull it back in and be like, that ain't got nothing to do with me.
Right.
That's their life. They can do what they want to do. They really can.
And you know what? I
Yes.
think that's important for people to understand, because I think we've gotten in this habit of group thinking, and we don't have our own opinion, our own thoughts, our own decision making skills, and we don't allow other people to do it either, or have theirs either. So it's like if somebody doesn't agree with you, or if someone has a different opinion, now we got to argue.
Wow.
We ain't trying to. I ain't trying to argue with you,
Right.
Because you got your own opinion. Because you got your own. Oh, you can. Oh, I don't subscribe to that, but I can. Okay, I got you.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's all about togetherness.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about here, guys. Being together.
And the other one that I would say is people being closed. They're not allowing themselves to be vulnerable enough to be in close relationship with other people, to build something that could be a connection that will prevent them from feeling lonely and being lonely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a running away from that. And I think we are seeing a lot of that in the divide between men and women, or those that are more masculine versus those are more feminine. And it is still taboo for those that subscribe to that to showcase emotions or just talk about stuff. It's like, do you not know your words? Like,
Right.
use your words, okay? Because I can't Edward Cullen you.
Throw back to last week's section about emotional
Intelligence. Yes. And I think people fail to realize how much not having vulnerability can impact your life and set you back. It can actually it can stunt your growth.
Oh, for sure. 100%. And I think we've talked about this before. We've done a disservice in specifically American society about the idea of being open and forthcoming and vulnerable, that it is a weakness. We've given it such a negative connotation when in reality it takes a lot of courage, bravery. I hate the word strength, but I'll use it for, context. Strength to be able to showcase some of the hurtful, dark, deep parts of yourself and allow someone else to comment on those, to help you through, give you feedback. It takes a lot of ability to say that I'm okay with doing that. And when you don't, then it makes it much more difficult for people to understand your needs, kind of like what you were saying. Understand your needs, being able to actually do something about what they're seeing. Because even if they notice it, but if you're not allowing them to do anything, then eventually the people in your life will start to just say, well, okay, well, I guess you just don't want it.
Yeah. And the other piece to that, or other piece that I would add, is you have to understand that being vulnerable doesn't make you weak, but it also allows you to allow certain people, because we're not saying that you have to just be vulnerable with everybody. Certain people have to earn that access to you. And
are they qualified?
Yeah.
Agreed.
So don't
Access codes.
No, just thank you.
Lots of nuggets and throwbacks being put in here, guys.
I think it's important when you think about being vulnerable that you realize when you are not vulnerable that you're not using your full self. Like, you're only using part of you. And I don't know about y'all, it's enough going on that I need my whole body. I need my mind, I need my emotions, I need my body. Like, I need all of my parts to work together for my good.
Right.
And when you shut one of those off, you're not showing up as your full self. You're not your best self.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people walking around struggling, but they would rather struggle than show up fully.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. And that's to say too that being vulnerable will require you to have difficult conversations. And those difficult a lot of people misunderstand what difficult conversations are. Difficult conversations are not meant for someone to walk away angry. Now, I'm not saying that it won't hurt your feelings. It may hurt your feelings, but that's hurt, not anger.
Mm-hmm.
So when you walk away from the situation, it gives you something to think about and it gives you something to work on.
Yeah. Criticism is not a bad thing as long as it's constructive.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, you can come in there and tear somebody to shreds,
and that's not good.
It's non-productive.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. If we're having a feedback session and this is based in care, gentleness, concern, problem solving, then of course that's where you want to end up. You know, that's the goal, that we can have this, like you said, difficult conversation, and it actually strengthen the relationship, and it doesn't make it weaker or separate, for lack of a better term. You know, you need those. When I talk with clients all the time, I say you can get rid of, and I hate using the word toxic, but you can get rid of toxic people, but you need difficult people in your life. You need them because difficult people are going to be the ones that keep you on your toes. They're going to be the voice of reason and
help you grow.
Mm-hmm.
So difficult people are not bad, but you don't confuse difficult people with toxicity.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's that whole analogy that I've used before: iron sharpening iron versus iron and wood. Iron will become dull, wood will be cut up. So you want to make sure that you are, there's some challenging in there. The other part of that, and which is also our fifth habit, is rigidity. Not having a capability or ability to be flexible and pivot in situations. It always has to be this way. That is a control thing, and technically it's a trauma response. If you got to hold on that tight, you probably don't need to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Rigid thinking, yes. A lot of times, I'm thinking about so many people in my head. It is a very anxious, fear-based state of being.
Yeah.
That control is a lot of times associated with fear. And that fear is that I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to be forgotten. I'm going to be outcast. There's some underlying reason. And if I can just keep these things within these parameters, they're safe.
Yeah.
I know how to operate within these rules, and I need everybody else to operate within these rules because I know what to do here. And when you get stuck in that mode of thinking, of course, like, we've been talking about, that pushes people away because not everyone is going to come from that same headspace. And not everybody has the same background or even emotional understanding, emotional intelligence, and that can make difficult conversations even more difficult.
Yeah. The fear, that panic, that anxiety, all of those things are typically derived from feeling unstable and feeling unsafe. And because those two things are allowed to exist or coexist for long periods of time, that's what continues to breed that and has you, making these unhealthy choices, unhealthy habits, your reality on a consistent basis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then when people are so rigid in their thinking and they push everybody away instead of understanding, they think that everybody is just outcasting them and, doing, other
Against
stuff
them.
against them. But in reality, they're actually pushing people away. So what do? They go online. And they start having conversations with people online, and they prefer to be online. And they, when I say online, I'm not really talking about Zoom. I'm talking about just, it could be chats.
Reddit.
The the avatar worlds that are
Yes.
built.
They become echo chambers. So if I reverberate, you see this a lot in the like incel community. If I reverberate out this kind of rhetoric, I'm looking for my people, my community. And I've said before, it's not necessarily that misery loves company. Misery loves miserable company. So I want other people to commiserate with me in my difficulty, in my headspace. If I'm lonely and I'm not ready to do the work necessary to get out of that loneliness state, then I want other people that are going to reinforce that idea, that reinforce that idea that it's already in my head.
It's on a constant loop.
Mini Psych 101, for those that don't know what incel is. Incel stands for involuntarily celibate, and those are individuals that tend to be on the fringe of society and have difficulty connecting with their preferred mate, whether that is opposite sex or same sex or some version in between. They have difficulty making those types of connections, and they often are alone and lonely, which that eventually turns into anger expressed outward. And again, this is a community that is very tight knit and deep in the mindset.
Yeah.
So that was your mini cycle 101.
Side note on that, if anybody has been watching the Clock app recently, you notice that a lot of those types of individuals have actually come under fire this week for being inappropriate with minors.
I'm not surprised. I was gonna throw that in there, but I was like, that'll be a dive into something.
There's no
else.
Checks and balances,
Right.
So it's like I'm just gonna run rampant. It's the misogyny for me.
Yes, because most incels are men. They're now. Does not say they're not incel women.
Yes, they definitely are.
Because toxic femininity is a real thing,
and it is a symptom of misogyny.
Yes, but the majority of incels tend to be men, but they prefer to connect in online forums because it's easier to access people that have my same mindset. It is much more difficult to see that if I just walk up to somebody in the grocery store,
and it's easy to control.
That too,
because if you're obviously younger than me, I can fill your head up with anything, and you'll do anything I want you to do.
Yep.
It's a naive people's game. There's typically a person of power in those situations, and then a lot of naive people that are looking for that connection. It's easy to get sucked into those situations.
The other thing I was kind of thinking as you ladies were talking about, that preference for online connection, is I also get to create who I want to be.
Catfish.
Yes. Yes, that's a perfect example. Actually, I get to, in things like Second Life, I get to create my own avatar. I get to be exactly what my head has always envisioned myself to be. I can be as flippant at the mouth. I can be as hypersexual, racist, political, demure. I can be anything, like literally I can be a whole nother species, like being online. I mean, in some of these
they be having wings and all kind of stuff,
fairies, I can literally create a completely different version of myself, and it can be so real for that individual, and it allows me to escape reality.
It definitely does.
And create a whole nother life.
And unfortunately that it's not keeping them grounded. That's actually got them out there floating in
the ether.
The metaverse. Blink. Yeah, so it's not a good thing. And there's nothing wrong with being in those communities, but where is your balance at? You have to balance that out, or you really start to lose the core, the essence of you.
And the thing about that is, you really do become lonely. Because
lonelier.
Yeah, you become lonelier, and you become alone.
Yeah.
Because you don't have, you created your life in this alternative world.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, you lose your ability to communicate effectively in a real world setting.
mhm.
You know, it takes practice. That's the thing about dealing with people. You have to practice these skills. You know, I've talked to a lot of people that are on the spectrum, and one of the things that I hear consistently is everybody else seems to get it, and I just don't get it. And, you know, one of the things I have to communicate to them is like, none of us start off getting it.
Mhm.
It is through trial and error and practice that you learn some of these unwritten social rules. It is through, sometimes it's through teaching from family, friends, teachers, things like that. But for the most part, we all learn through experience.
Mhm.
And you have to, okay, so that worked this time. Okay, let me not do that again. That didn't work at all.
Mhm.
And it is, if you create this completely, you know, void of physical reality type of world, then you don't get that practice. And if you don't use it, you lose it.
Mhm.
You know, that's just kind of the thing that I'm thinking about when it comes to the, like, I want to be online and I just want to sit in my room and on the keyboard.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've given you your 6, but as promised, we do have a couple of bonus ones that we feel will touch home with the interns. So, the first bonus one is that you tend to be around other people that are lonely. So, you're commiserating
Mhm.
with each other.
Misery loves miserable company.
Yes.
Which hits the online world.
Yeah, yeah. I know for me personally, I'm not a lonely person, but I know that I'm an introvert.
Mhm.
So many of my close friends are ambiverts or extroverts, so that we are mixing
Mhm.
the way that we connect with each other. Because, say for instance, my cousin Ambrosia, shout out to her, is coming to see me this weekend. We're both introverts. We will literally, she'll come to the house, she'll be on one couch, I'll be on the other couch, and we will read the whole weekend. Not say none to each other, and we have the greatest time ever. That's not always healthy.
Mhm.
Sometimes you got to go places, you got to get out,
Mhm.
you got to connect with people, even if it's not a in your face, hey, I know you connecting. It's, you have to experience the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about being in a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Being a social creature does not always equal one-to-one
No.
social. Sometimes it is, I'm at the grocery store and I'm visually seeing other human beings.
Smiling with, if you live in Texas, you smiled at a few people. You
You
got your
can
peas.
literally
You
go
got
to
your peas.
Starbucks. I remember when we was working on our doctoral degree and studying for the test. I would literally go to Starbucks every day after work, and I would have my own little table, and I'd be in my own little world. But I went there so much, I knew some of the people that we would have a little conversation. Be like, okay, well, have a good day. And you studying today? Yes, I am studying today. I'm ready to finish, but I'm studying today. And you know, I didn't know those people, but we would have a conversation, and I was surrounded by people, but like when I started studying, I was in my zone. So I was not surrounded by people.
Yeah.
But I was really surrounded by people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You need that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't only just need the, like I said, the one-to-one.
Mm-hmm.
You need the sights, the sounds, the smells, the atmosphere. You know, I'm an energy person, so you need that energy of hustle and bustle sometimes. You know, if you're more introverted, you may not need that every day, but you do need it sometimes as a way to, one, just keep you connected to humanness.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah,
with
and
that.
just like we've been saying, getting the practice of interacting with people so that you don't become, I don't want to say you can make yourself be an introvert, but so that you don't become
Hermit.
Yeah, a
Recluse.
hermit. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree too. Our final bonus habit that we have is that you tend to utilize your anger as the only acceptable emotion.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
Wow.
Anger's such an odd feeling. It's so easy. And I've said this before, it's one of the easiest feelings to show, But it's such an odd feeling because it covers up so many other more accurate emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, if loneliness is the base feeling, and on the outside, I display anger, again, like we said last week, it's going to lead people to try to address you being angry, but that's not your correct or real feeling.
Mhm.
Your real feeling is I'm lonely and I want people around, but because I felt this way for so long, it has gone unaddressed and now it looks like this. So I'm irritable, I may be snappy, and people are not going to want to be around that.
No, straight up leaving you over there in the corner, acting a fool by yourself.
Yeah. And I would like to think that these individuals sometimes do it on purpose because they don't know how to manage their feelings. I don't want to say anger because it's usually not the
Mm-hmm.
primary emotion, but
Yeah.
they tend to use this as a means to keep people at bay and or to bully people and or to gain control.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Their emotional intelligence is low.
Yeah.
Their ability to cope, function, manage, clarify, like all those things that we talked about in the previous session, is just so low, and they cannot like grasp how to do those things. So it becomes extremely difficult.
I just wanted to add a couple of things real
Mhm.
quick since we're talking about, such a heavy emotion. And one of the things we've always kind of discussed was some of the physical effects
Mhm.
that these emotions have on us.
Yeah.
And, loneliness can lead to like high blood pressure,
Yep.
obesity, kind of talking about what
Mhm.
your comfort eating, things like
Yes.
that. Your immune system may become much more weakened and easily compromised to become
Mhm.
sick. Of course, it's going to could lead to a host of mental health
Yes.
issues, anxiety, depression. You could become a little OCD-ish, very
Paranoid.
paranoid.
One article that I read even connected it to Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
I could definitely, because you're literally shifting your brain. Like
Mhm.
when you stay in anything, whether it's an emotion, whether it's a situation, whatever, you are creating neural pathways that you might not want to be creating,
Mhm.
which could damage your brain in the way it functions.
Yeah.
And for the elderly, loneliness tends to also lead to death.
Mhm.
Yes.
You see this happen a lot with spouses that have been married for a very long time,
Mhm.
and one spouse passes away, the other one often does not follow too long behind the other.
That, not that our session is about, the school
Mhm.
unalivings, but that just reminded me of the gentleman that lost his wife and then
Yes.
later went
Yeah.
and had a heart attack. So it's a lot,
Mhm.
and he was like, "I'm not gonna be able to do this
Yeah.
without her, so I
Mhm.
got to go too."
Absolutely. So, you also want to make sure that you're checking yourself physically
Mm-hmm.
and self-assessing to see if that is more emotionally based or is it genuinely and truly a physical condition, because of course high blood pressure can be related to
Yeah.
a variety of things.
Yes.
Definitely.
Of course diet, congenital, family, hereditary. But if you don't check your emotions, it could be, again, we've said this before, a host of different feelings.
Mhm.
So you want to make sure that you're looking at as many angles as you can
Mhm.
when you're experiencing something physical.
Yeah.
And getting yourself worked up, checked out. What is going on in my life, what's happened in my past, what's happening in my present.
Mhm.
That could be contributors
Yeah.
to what I'm going through.
What have been some things that have helped y'all, combat loneliness throughout your life, or when you're in, that grind mode, or even during, the recent pandemic or anything like that?
So I would say the grind mode, it helped when I went home. Because I was, we were in school.
Mm-hmm.
It was a breath of fresh air to go, just be around my family, because anytime I've moved, I've been by myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had family. Of course I make my miniature families, where I am, but
Your birth family.
my birth family. So when I would go home, I would just, me and my mom would have like an itinerary wary of things that we would, do
Mhm.
because I'm her only daughter. So of course she wants to do girly things with me.
She said, I'm ready.
Exactly. So I would go home, spend a lot of time with my mom, and then my dad and I would have our special time. We would go, either eat breakfast or go for a ride, something. We would just do something together as well.
Mhm.
And then, of course, my brothers. And then it was just relieving for me. And then I would be able to come back and be like, okay, well, back to the real world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
I think, excuse me, guys, sorry. I think one of the things for myself was having a difficult person. Him, my husband, as much as I love him, he is like one of my difficult people because he does not let me make it
Mhm.
at all. If I'm, engaging in self-pity or self-sabotaging, he is not one that's going to, sorry, excuse me, guys, sorry. Let me just say my allergies are acting a donkey today, and I think I made it to the end without, but I don't want y'all talking about me on the camera. But he, if I, like I'm saying, if I'm engaging in self-sabotage or self-deprecating, anything like that, he is somebody that's going to stop that thought process and either give me a different direction to kind of start moving into, correct that line of thinking, give me alternatives. So it has helped when I have felt like my mind is creating a narrative that may not necessarily be true, to have someone that can, kind of top down
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah, I agree with that. For me, it has been having at least one person in my life that is willing to hold space for me and allow me to genuinely be myself, goofy, awkward, nerdy self, and then love on me from a place. I'm not someone who is typically going to reach out because I need a problem solved because I've already processed that really quickly. But someone that can just let me be my vulnerable, authentic self, that's what typically helps pull me out of that. And I think some other things that we've definitely talked about before is, of course, therapy and having your support system aligned. And it's something that I've been telling my clients more recently because, a lot of them are still abiding by their own pandemic rules, is to definitely get a weighted blanket because that embrace, even though it may not be from a human, that embrace is going to settle your parasympathetic and your sympathetic system and help you be like, okay, like I'm doing okay.
And I would add to that for me, I also, it seems like everybody in my life holds me accountable. Like they may not hold nobody else accountable.
It's because you need it.
Whatever. But they do. Like I think I have surrounded myself with a great group of people that will call me out if I'm being too abrasive or abrupt or something. My husband he don't let me live either. You delete that real right now. And so, and I also when I have to send stuff, I read, and if I don't want them to tell me to delete it, I'll just send it. But I sent something. So
we normally have to tell her you need to apologize.
Exactly.
That was inappropriate.
Exactly. But I do have people around me that hold me accountable as well. But I think the people that are around me are not, I hope I don't make it uncomfortable for them to hold me accountable, because they do anyway, even if I do. So I think we've created spaces for each other to be held accountable.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that y'all said. As an addition to what I said, that having people around me that want me around, I think that has also been a combat towards loneliness. We've talked about in previous sessions that I tend to have more of a dismissive, even though I have a secure, cloaked, dismissive attachment style, it can be very easy, not purposefully, for me to distance from other people, not because I feel lonely, but it could appear that way because I'm not as outwardly reaching. So having people in my life that desire to have me around and also seek out me has helped with that as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree with all of that.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, y'all know we always end off with a quote.
And today's quote is by Robin Williams, R.I.P. I used to think the worst thing in life was to end up all alone. It's not. The worst thing in life is to end up with people that make you feel all alone.
Must be his volume control.
So, okay, interns, process your notes. Be sure to catch us next session and find us on all major platforms at the Recycled Podcast.
If you're a new intern, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Thanks for listening. And remember, we are shifting and reshaping our psyche through healing conversations and connections, one discussion at a time.